Welcome to my instrumentation video project. Today I'm going to be demonstrating exploring on 5 surfaces and scaling on 6 surfaces. The first surface is the facial surface of tooth number 13. We're going to use the 11-12 Explorer and the 12-13 Anna Pattison Gracies. For this surface, the clinician should be at a 10-11 o'clock position. Here with the Explorer, we're going to insert at the distal line angle and begin our featherlight strokes, overlapping horizontal, oblique, and vertical strokes while exploring for calculus, keeping that tip in contact with the tooth, and rolling into the proximal contact as we come to the mesial surface. Using the 13 end of the 13-14 Anna Pattison Gracie, I'm going to insert at the distal line angle, make sure that blade reaches that 70-degree adaptation, and begin vertical strokes. I'm going to go ahead and reinsert with the 12 end of the 11-12 Anna Pattison Gracie, begin my debridement of the facial surfaces using oblique horizontal strokes, then coming into the mesial contact. I like to fulcrum on the lower anterior teeth or the lower left premolars for this area. I realize my video doesn't demonstrate this very well because it's hard to do without my dentiform moving without a mount, but I want to acknowledge that I understand that the Gracies need to be inserted at a 0-degree or closed angle before adapting to that 70-degree angle for calculus removal strokes. So here's kind of an example of insertion at that closed angle with a Gracie curette. Our next surface is going to be the lingual surface of tooth number 30. We're going to explore using the 11-12 Explorer and debride using the Micro Mini 12-13 Gracies. Here, the clinician is at the 10-11 o'clock position once again. Using the 12 end of the 11-12 Explorer, we're going to insert at the distal line angle and begin our featherlight strokes using the 2mm tip of the Explorer to feel subgingivally and come around to the mesial surface. Now, as I prepare to scale, I'm going to insert at the distal line angle with the 13 end of the 12-13 Micro Mini Gracie curette. And start with my vertical strokes. Next, I am going to insert with the 12 end of the 11-12 Micro Mini Gracie curette and come across the lingual surface to the mesial surface using oblique horizontal strokes. And it's not really shown well in this video, but I typically like to fulcrum on the mandibular anterior teeth, and sometimes I come across the dentition to the lower left mandibular premolars. Moving on to our next surface will be the facial surface of tooth number 20 using the 11-12 Explorer and the 16-17 Mini Gracie curette. Clinician is at the 10-11 o'clock position. Using the 12 end of the 11-12 Explorer, we're going to insert at the distal line angle and begin our featherlight strokes using a pen grasp, coming around, using a mix of horizontal, oblique, and vertical strokes for calculus detection. Using an intraoral fulcrum on the mandibular anterior teeth, I'm going to use the 17 end of the 17-18 Mini Gracie to insert at the distal line angle and complete my vertical debridement strokes. Now I'm going to switch to the 16 end of the 15-16 Mini Gracie to complete my horizontal and oblique strokes across the facial surface before coming around to the mesial surface and using vertical strokes to debride the caul with that 70-degree blade adaptation. These strokes are about 1 to 2 millimeters in length. Next, we are going to explore and debride the lingual surface of tooth number 9 using the 11-12 Explorer and the 5-6 Langer. Here, the clinician will be in the 12 o'clock position. For the distal surface of this tooth, we are going to explore using the 11 end of the 11-12 Explorer, and for the mesial surface and the straight lingual, we are going to come around using the 12 end of the 11-12 Explorer. I'm using an intraoral fulcrum on the corresponding maxillary anterior canine, and I'm using a combination of horizontal, oblique, and vertical strokes. As I prepare to scale, I chose to use the 5 end of the 5-6 Langer curette. The Langer is a universal curette. However, I felt that the 5-end adapted best to this tooth and this surface. So you can see I'm using a combination of strokes, applying lateral pressure using my intraoral fulcrum on the corresponding maxillary anterior canine and upper right premolars. Our next surface is going to be the lingual surface of tooth number 24. We're going to use the 1112 Explorer and the Nevi 4 Sickle Scaler. Here the clinician is also in the 12 o'clock position. For the distal surface of tooth 24, I'm going to be using the 12 end of the 1112 Explorer. And for the mesial surface, I am going to be using the 11 end of the 1112 Explorer. I typically switch to the mesial surface end to do the straight lingual surface as well. And as I come around, I keep that shank parallel and that tip adapted to the tooth. When scaling this area with a sickle, I like to fulcrum intraorally on the facial or incisal surfaces of the anterior teeth. And I typically like to change chair positions, so for the surfaces away from me, I like to be in the 12 o'clock position, and for the surfaces toward me, I like to move down into the 9 o'clock position. In the contact area, it's important to keep the blade adapted to the tooth and stand up on your fulcrum in order to remove deposits in the contact. Next, I will demonstrate the toe down and reverse toe down technique using the McCall 1718 on the distal surfaces of tooth number 16 and tooth number 32. Tooth number 16, I'm going to be in the 10, 11 o'clock position. And for tooth number 32, I'm going to be in the 9 o'clock position. I'm going to use a combination of extraoral and intraoral fulcrums to debride number 16. I'm going to use the opposite end of the McCall 1718 to adapt the blade and complete horizontal strokes on both the lingual and the facial halves of the distal surface of the tooth. For tooth number 32, again, I'm using the McCall 1718 to debride the distal surface. I'm fulcruming on the adjacent posterior teeth using an intraoral fulcrum, and then I'm moving to the mandibular anterior teeth with another intraoral fulcrum to debride the distal lingual surface. Coming across the tooth with that toe down, I am completing my horizontal strokes.